So welcome everyone. We're going to try and keep this panel moving and dynamic. And so in line with that, we're going to skip perhaps the most boring part of any panel, which is the introductions, because people just go on and on and on about themselves, and they don't realize that they're less interesting than they think they are. Having said that, we do have a very interesting group of panelists. You can see them, and I'm sure you would have read their bios, etc. And we'll just kind of weave in background and introductions as we go along, so we can kind of get right into it. But you can see there are these very capable, good-looking entrepreneurs, and if COVID has put a crimp in your dating life, we'll hand out their contact infos afterwards. Okay, so. I have no idea if any of them are married or not, but let's ignore that for now. Okay, so let's get going. So I'm Nish Bhutani, and I'm going to first ask Kuntal Malia, who is, oh, by the way, also just to give you an idea of format, we're going to have discussions. We'll take a couple of polls during the panel. So, you guys will get a chance to kind of give your inputs as well. And of course, take Q&A from time to time also, yeah? So Kuntal, so we have here a couple of actually COVID positive businesses, as one of you put yesterday, in the sense that COVID has done positive things for your business. But Kuntal, you're at least initially you were very much in the COVID negative category, which is not a good thing in this case.
In this case, no. I think otherwise I think everyone's happy when they get their COVID negative result. But in this case, definitely not. So just for background or for clarity, we are a clothing recommendation service for women, and our primary target audience has been the working woman. And we're focused mainly on her clothes for her work life and her life a little outside. So once the lockdown happened, I think you can kind of imagine pretty much what it spelled out. All of us have been sitting at home. And there is nowhere to go. So that's where the COVID negative, or I think I would rather say a big halt to everything came in for us at that point.
So did you feel, I mean, Anuradha's doing this very worthwhile thing where she's helping teach people languages. Sumeet is also, at Copy Kitab, he's educating people. And you're doing something trivial like fashion. So did you ever kind of, when COVID started and the world was disrupted and people were getting sick, did you ever go home and say, why am I doing this? Does fashion matter?
Actually, I think if we can actually land up serving the right kind of clothes to women, the amount of insecurity that they face goes down. And whenever we have spoken to customers who have gotten products that work for them, when you hear that confidence and the amount of self-assurance that they feel is amazing.
So you're saying fashion is really a mental health issue?
It absolutely is. I mean, we have actually also played around with it during the lockdown, where we encouraged our users to wear certain colors, to do XYZ things, and their mood just lift up.
Yeah. Good answer. Okay. So tell me, how did you deal with the downturn? What was like, give us some examples, like how did you feel? How did you react? How did your team react?
So I think, for us, we actually went into lockdown earlier than everybody else. Being in Bombay, we were a little worried. So I think March 13th itself, we declared that the team would start working from home. So we did it a little early on. But then, of course, when the full national lockdown came, it was still a jolt. And everything kind of came to a standstill for us. I honestly didn't have time to react because I was in action mode of just seeing what I cut down, what I shut down. And I was just kind of literally trying to get to that stage. And then I think after a few weeks, there was moaning and there was some crying. My team started, feeling very unhappy about the fact, because we were on a nice little growth path. And we had a lot of things figured out, and then this was a complete slam. So they're like, why now? And yeah, there was a little bit of crying on that front for everybody, myself included. I was just as upset, but after a while, I kind of was like, this is beyond my control. There's nothing that I can actually do about this except to see now what to do next.
So from a marketing standpoint, whether thinking about which customers to reach out to or how their needs might have changed,
We did
How
a
did you, what did you do?
complete standstill. I mean, for us, aside from the fact that nobody could purchase from us then, I think it also would have been very insensitive and irrelevant for us to be talking about clothes.
Sorry, what I meant was when I say marketing, I meant not necessarily promotion,
Yeah.
but even sort of customer understanding or understanding how their needs have changed or whether you should change your product marketing mix.
Yeah.
How
So
did you go about that?
I mean, I think for us, we didn't have the option of even serving her through our physical products. What we started doing was offering chats with our stylists, with our team, which was just a way for people to kind of talk and let us know how they're doing. A lot of our customers did actually go in for a styling chat where they wanted to get some ideas about how to feel about themselves, what they should do, how they should look. But we kind of opened up, I would say, a mini counseling kind of a thing. Not
Interesting.
really counseling, but just we just opened up and said, "Hey, how are you doing? What's going on? Are you okay?" And a lot of stuff would come out, which also kind of gave us the insight that not only were our users obviously not going to home, but their life had changed, right? Like I have my target audience is a woman who's now managing her work from home, is managing her kid from home, is managing her family from home, and is doing the housework and you know the cooking. And there was this big article about women complaining about how men don't like participate at home, and it just blew up during the lockdown, right, with the servants not coming in. So we kind of realized the headspace where our customer was operating from very quickly.
That's really interesting. I'm going to have, in fact, on that note, Mansi Vora is helping us out. She's from Lightbox. Mansi, if you don't mind putting up slide 28, I think it is, because it relates to kind of what Kuntal is saying here. So meanwhile, so Kuntal, you started engaging people through chats and so on, and where did that lead?
So that's how that actually led to our messaging changing very dramatically, and we were constantly paying attention. In the early days of the lockdown, now it seems a little far to kind of think about it. But if you remember, almost every week or every few days, the tone was changing in terms of what was happening in the country. So we started paying very close attention to what was happening. Our marketing, messaging, communications was all about staying safe, taking care of yourself. How should you think about things? We did some interesting collaborations with companies like Dr. Vaidya's, Dr. Seth's, where we just shared posts about what to do. And I actually realized something which, I don't know if it's a matter of like the lockdown or the current situation we're in, but we just reached out to people and people said yes. I think it was a time, and it's still a time, where everyone is trying to figure out also what to do. So collaborations are happening in a far more easier manner than they used to before.
So I'll interrupt you there for a second. So I think, what's interesting, what you were saying there is, and actually it's the VP of marketing at HubSpot who's talked about this, which is, we often think online of kind of sales as sort of this river that flows through, and then whatever you can catch, you catch, right?
Yeah.
And I think what you did was you started creating pools of customers, right? Not necessarily around selling them stuff,
Yeah.
right? But around servicing their needs.
Yeah.
And hopefully you're capturing enough information about them and building some sort of brand affinity so that later from these pools, little streams can be converted into sales, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of feels like one approach is, this is more a time for lead nurturing rather than simply saying sell, 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 because that won't, depending on your product, of course, but particularly in the case of your product, it makes more sense to engage them and keep them around and and then later, perhaps you're able to sell to them.
Yeah. And I think it also brings in sensitivity to the team when they're actually making these conversations. Our product manager is a guy, and he did a few calls, and apparently like the women like spent 1 hour talking to him. He was
Yeah.
he was getting very stressed out, like how do I get out of this conversation? Because but he could figure out that the woman wanted someone to talk to. She
Yeah.
just needed to kind of let him know how things were. That's how
Sure.
we understood where the headspace was.
Yeah. Mansi, if you could move to the next slide as well. So Mansi, besides working at Lightbox, is also an SAE fellow. I forgot to say that. More importantly, is an SAE fellow. She also works at Lightbox. Okay, so Google has put out this report recently, and they've talked about something called the messy middle. So as marketers, we tend to think in terms of funnels, right? But the reality online is that there's a lot of stuff that happens in between. And the vast majority of customers, particularly for a slightly more complex product, don't just move through all the cycles of evaluation and exploration and purchase and so on. So I think that's partly what, with COVID, I think that middle has become even messier and longer. But it speaks to the importance of keeping the customer engaged and reminding them of your presence while they're in that messy middle until they get to the point of purchase, essentially. And there's actually a very good report put out by Google UK, which I would encourage people to look at. So I'll bring Anuradha in here now. So Anuradha, whether in the context of what Kuntal was saying, I mean, you have actually a COVID positive business, right? So when it first hit, what did you see? What changes did you see in customer behavior? Was it about servicing existing customers with with kind of different needs? Was it about new customer segments? How did you think about it?
So to be honest, Nish, more than the thought process, I would like to bring out the story, the train of events that actually happened, right? And so the way we used to interact with the customers earlier on taking subscription packages. So by the way, Multibhashi is a platform where we teach languages, right? And our primary focus pre-COVID was teaching English through Indian languages. So basically our target audience was lower middle class, blue and gray collared professionals who were trying to learn English to upskill themselves and get better jobs. What we started seeing was, and obviously in our lead funnel, we used to have all kinds of people. We started seeing that people like clerks and people earning around 10 to 15K per month started pushing back and saying, I'm not getting my salary on time. I cannot, this is a discretionary spend for me because this is not directly related to my, job growth at this point. So probably I cannot. So in a way, it felt like a jolt for us also in the beginning, right? But then we realized that there were some other segments that were opening up. In the sense, again, from these calls, we realized that women were opening up about learning English because they were saying that hitherto I've been a housewife, but now my husband is losing his job. If I learn a little bit of English, I can get a work from home job because these work from home jobs are on the rise. I can get a customer support job, right?
So this became an investment rather than an expense.
Exactly. So with 2 to 3 months of English learning, then she could apply to a job and she could get a work from home job, right? So that segment opened up, and we started tweaking our marketing communication accordingly. So the ad would say that, okay, I could not even apply to jobs earlier because I was not feeling confident. Now I do because I've learned English and I've got a work from home job. Second thing we started seeing was requests.
Hey, Mansi, we can remove the slide. We can stop sharing the slide. Yeah. So we can focus on, great. Yeah.
Second thing, what started happening was people were approaching Multibhashi organically. And there were cases where people were saying, okay, I'm a white collar professional, but I'm at home now. I'm not traveling to work. The work has slowed down in my company. I want to do something to utilize my time. I'm going crazy with all the time on my hand. I think you're Multibhashi. Why don't you teach me French? And at that point of time, we were not teaching French. But we never said we don't teach French. We said, okay, why not? Right? We are just going to start a batch in 2 weeks because we didn't have any tayari till then, right?
Yeah. This is very lean startup because this is sort of like, hey, let's assess the demand first. Then let's worry about building the service, right?
Correct. But that opened up an entire segment for us.
Yeah.
And when we started March, I think April, we started our first foreign language batch. Today, foreign language learning contributes to a large portion of our revenue.
And how did you figure out which foreign languages to offer first?
The demand was coming in for French, Spanish, Japanese, German.
And this was just anecdotal, like people were just sort of...
A little bit of research also, but more than research, I always prefer anecdotal evidence, to be honest, Nish.
Oh, interesting.
Because I'm
Why
like,
is that?
I'd rather spend my money on something which is in front of my eyes rather than your intellectual output on this is the research and this I think, and your, the
Understand.
marketing
So
is
research
done.
can, research can mean different things, right? And so research actually today has become a bad word, but it can be done in a more dynamic, real time, assessing real demand. In
Such
fact,
a
I'm going
kind
to
of a
stop
way.
for a second
Yeah.
because that's a great jumping point. I'll come back to you. But Sumit and I were having this discussion the other day. So Sumit Verma, he runs Copy Kitab, which is a higher ed education service, right? And they provide everything from courses to materials. I was amazed, like professors' notes, students' notes, like everything is now available, right? It's a very different way than when I went to college. But Sumit and I were having this discussion because he was planning to launch a new vertical. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what it was or not, what it is or
Yeah,
not.
you can.
Yeah. So this is tutoring, live tutoring, right? And Sumit was saying, we think that we're lining up the supply for XYZ categories. And then once we have lined it up, we will launch the front end to customers, right? And I suggested to him, no, actually do the opposite. Launch the front end first. List all the categories, see which one people select, right? And then based on what you see, the demand for different categories, those are the ones you should line up supply for. And in the process, you'll also keep collecting signups. You'll say coming soon, you'll collect signups. So you have kind of an audience that's ready to go and a list that's ready to go. So I don't know, Sumit, he nodded and said he loved that suggestion, but I don't know if he was just flattering me or not. But so I'll ask Sumit now, I'll put him on the spot. Are you actually doing that or not?
So I'll go a step back on the research point, Nish.
So
So
that's
just
a form of
before,
research also is the point I was making, right?
So
But
I'll go.
it's live
Yeah. So
research at your customers. They think that they're signing up for a real service, and only at the end they realize that the service doesn't exist, right?
So what we did a step back on that on research side. So just before the launching tutorial, lockdown happened, and we were thinking what is additionally we can do, because it has to be revenue driven for the company, and additional services to existing pool, because we have very decent user base, and as a company we are managing their learning life cycle of a higher education student. So we thought, like, all coaching classes have been locked down, brick and mortar has been closed, so let's speak to coaching guys, and they might be needing like for B2B college and schools, they might be needing our hands to reach out to their students. And 2 days time we spoke to close to 225 coaching institutes, and all of them said yes, we need it. We prepared a product, basic product, beta product, and we launched and we start giving them. Then they start that whole mess started of service industry kind of thing. I want this, I want that icon, I want this, I want it here. I have this many users. We decide, boss, this is going to be service side, and we don't want to be in this kind of industry because the user is not that aware. So research wise, it said everybody wants it.
Yeah.
But nobody wanted to pay for it, the right kind of money, because they think my next door guy is giving me for 5,000 rupees. Why are you charging for like 15,000 rupees?
Yeah.
All that stuff.
And pricing is another thing you can test online on that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So you in that case, Nish, I was mentioning about the tutorials, the coaching guys, they were very less tech savvy. So it was kind of, so it was kind of B2B. So we pulled off immediately within so small piece of period of time. And then we discussed into this tutorial thing, because this is demand was coming from the student side, because student got stuck up at homes. And what we did, rather than working on, because of one more thing, any kind of research or any kind of marketing thing you want to test or research before you launch in the market, or if you want to put on website also. So remember we discussed about the bandwidth kind of thing for starters, when so many things are going on and people are working from home, so aligning everybody. So we thought of like, let's because of our previous experience, everybody say yes to everything you call, or randomly click on things. Let's try to understand the traffic which is coming on the website, so that education, fortunately, unfortunately, in India is need based. Very few percentage of people would be coming for learning purpose. Everybody just want to crack their respective exams.
But Sumit, let's get back to the point of how would you assess you're launching a new service in response to a change in demand, a change in the environment, right? And potentially a change in demand. How do you assess which categories of demand to build for? right? This is the point about kind of, what Anuradha was saying, that, hey, I don't believe in research, more anecdotal, etc. So how do you assess that?
So for us, Nish, it is bit easier unless you're launching, because in Anuradha's case, she was launching a new category for new target audience. For us, it is same existing users we do have on the platform. So we have that whole track record of now seasonality, how people visit, what time, because different exams and different things happen on a different timetable for the students.
Okay.
So for us, it was bit easier because we could foresee though things are locked down. But based on examinations are happening, the kids would be turning up to the website,
Okay.
or
So
they're
you basically
studying.
looked at your data and accordingly you assessed where there would be demand. Anuradha, did you, coming back to you, did you just go ahead and launch certain languages, or did you run a test of any kind? Like, did you say, let's put up a landing page, let's see, which ones people gravitate to, any of that?
No, so we first did things manually, Nish. We did not build any tech for this new category. I am myself a French, I've cleared 2 levels of French and I knew basics. So I was confident that I don't even need to hire a trainer right now. And we were doing live tutoring. So I said, I want to do this in a completely manual way. I want to test waters first. Let's try to form a batch. These couple of leads were in organic. They came on their own. Let's start advertising that we're doing a French batch. How many people are interested? And we did not do any paid marketing for the first batch. We just floated around in WhatsApp groups, in our society groups and those things. We formed a very small batch of, I think, 6 people. And I myself took the initial few classes. And when we saw the response, we did not have any learning material at all. I was just teaching whatever I liked. But then when the response started coming in, and after 5 to 10 classes, we decided that, okay, so beyond these 6 people, other people were coming in after those WhatsApp messages and all. So I said, it's a good field to get inside. And then we started doing it properly. We hired trainers. We started building our curriculum. And we built proper landing pages. So now if you go to Multibashi website, it's completely transformed. We do it in a course first approach, all foreign languages. But the point here is that we saw an opening and we quickly grabbed it.
Great.
In this time,
and you didn't commit a lot of resources to grabbing it.
We didn't.
Yeah.
And we also saw the positive side of COVID, because there was such a situation. There were a lot of teachers sitting at home. Correct?
Yeah.
There were a lot of foreign language teachers we were quickly able to get at very reasonable pricing. So to launch this category, and then later on we also started, and again that was more anecdotal, Nish, and no.
It's very interesting actually what you said, because it's like, Uber saying, okay, there's extra capacity in cars, right? When they launch their business, you said there's extra capacity in people sitting at home.
Correct.
How can it be utilized for income? Right.
And then we went on to explore the kids market as well, because we were hearing a lot of things. Kids are at home, kids need, and I myself have 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
A 5 and 7-year-old. So I knew that it's getting difficult for me to handle them. They have so much time besides school. Again, just out of, anecdotal evidence of a few parents reaching out and saying, do you have language courses for kids? We launched a batch for kids. And the kids batch, till date, we haven't spent a penny on marketing. It is purely organic, because kids referral network works like fire. One mom wants her kid to learn German. Everybody in her classroom wants her kid to learn German.
And the level of aspiration in India these days is incredible, because we're working with a startup when we did some research. Sorry. And and we talked to
you're a marketer. You have to come with the data.
So, we talked to a few kids where household income was maybe like 5-6 lakhs a month, or 5-6 lakhs a year, sorry. And these kids were going for French lessons, Spanish tuitions, that kind of, and the kids don't fundamentally sound very different from kids in more in wealthier households. I mean, the English might not be as fluent, etc., but their activities, how crowded their schedules are, the tuitions, it all felt very similar.
In fact, talking about how to take advantage of the opportunity, I'm not sure if the video will play in your slides, Nish, but on slide number 16, I guess we have this video we just made 2 days ago.
Should we play it? Let's try.
Yeah, if it can play. So as soon as the PUBG banned news came in, the video marketing team just went crazy. And they came out with this video saying all the kids are going to be free now, no PUBG.
Yeah.
What are they going to do with the time? Make them learn a new language.
Yeah.
We did a meme on that. We did a video on that. Again, super hit. Like, we are getting responses from those videos and posts.
I mean, that's great. You know, like you're saying to parents, your kids used to spend time on PUBG. Now they can actually spend their time productively in front of a screen.
And what we're linking here is the screen time, Nish, because for kids, most of the time, it's not what they're watching on the screen. It's just the screen that they get addicted to.
Yeah.
So whether they're playing PUBG or they're playing a gamified French game where they have to identify what is the meaning of déjeuner, right? So
what is the meaning of déjeuner?
Lunch.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Great. So are we putting up that video now, Mansi? I think you're on mute, Mansi. Oh, this is also cool. So why don't you talk through that first and then we can put up the video.
So this is a little meme that the team created saying, so when you search for something on Google, it gives you, did you mean, right?
Yeah.
So if you're searching for PUBG ban, it's saying, did you mean it's time to learn a new language because the kid is all free now?
Super.
And then we gave a little description of what we do.
This is really kind of thinking out of the box. Yeah.
And class, slide number 17 is about that video that I was talking about.
Yeah, let's play that.
Yeah. And I'll talk a little about the video once it is played.
Sure.
Especially what I liked about the graphics.
Sorry, should I play it again? I realized I was on mute. One sec.
Sure.
And roll now for a sweet yellow glass.
Nice.
And just a few days ago, we had created a video which said your child can either be a PUBG score, whatever, or a language expert in French. And then when the PUBG got banned, we trashed that video and we came up with this one. What I particularly like about this video is the first image where they're showing a child in dark using a mobile screen, which, you know, instantly brings parents to anxiety. Okay, he's doing it in hiding. His eyes are going to be spoiled. So I think that image really worked for me when they came out with this video.
So tell me, how did this happen? Like, how did you get that insight saying, okay, PUBG, how did you go from PUBG's ban to let's do this? Was it just that you guys are in such close touch with the customers that you already know their fears and all of that? Or how did it happen?
I'm myself a parent, Nish, and while my kids are too young to play PUBG, I have a nephew who is like severely addicted to PUBG. We had an episode related to PUBG. At very close quarters, we've seen, right? You know, he did something he shouldn't have for PUBG. So that was one thing which I narrated to my team, and then they came up with this idea. But besides that, also, you know, we've seen cases where after enrolling their kids, parents often complain, now at least he'll not play. At least he'll not spend time playing. So it's again, less research, more anecdotal, more staying close to your users and listening to them.
Great. Super.
But I do think there's value in that sense, in being like your target audience.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I mean, I think there's certain things you just kind of naturally think about and you kind of then start running towards it. I think there's a huge advantage of that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like as a founder in particular, because you understand the soul of your business and then you yourself are kind of in the shoes of that customer. Yeah. So Sumit, how about you? Like any kind of revelations that came from either talking to customers or customer data that helped you shift direction?
Yeah, so Nish, as COVID started off and we were going like here and there trying to figure out because a lot of things stopped in March and March used to be a financial closing. And we also learned, like, a lot of people approaching us for collaborations. Everybody wanted to do collaborations because this something everybody is looking out to for new revenue and all that stuff. And we had B2B, a lot of B2B customers, universities and all that. So first thing, after a lot of non-stop calls for a couple of days, first thing I learned after 15, 20 days, when it kept brought me to was exhaustion. Every morning to evening I'm on phones and video calls. uh, I realized, like, first I have to learn whom all I have to talk. Number one. Number two, whom all I have to say no, straight no. So in that scenario, I had to say no to a lot of institutional customers also, because everybody wanted to have free. Free was the new thing in edtech. Everybody was throwing free stuff in the market. There's a lot of noise, and parents are overwhelmed. Kids are. I'm sure, Anuradha, as you mentioned of PUBG, but all parents would have loved, but kids were pissed off. Like, parents are, try this, ye bhi naya aaya, ye bhi try kar le. Everything,
Correct,
it was,
correct.
everything was for free. So for us, one thing I learned is that was we have to realize early whether this opportunity, and move pretty fast on saying yes or no, rather than wasting time on this. On that sense, like, we had to say no to Amazon, and one part for Flipkart also,
Yeah.
for partnership. That was one thing I learned. And second, from customer insight, when we are talking to customers, so we were thinking, when we were doing this tutorial thing. So when we are talking to students, and we thought, like, we choose one of these after looking at data. We'll be doing after this is the first season. After Q1, it should be for engineering students, and they would be going for their session opening up and everything. And they really want to do this thing, but after talking to a couple of students in different geographies, in east, west, north, south, where, like, we have a good density of students, we realized, like, right now nobody in study mode, especially engineering vertical. Nobody wants to study because they are very uncertain about exams happening or not, and forget learning or anything else. If exams happening, then only they're studying, otherwise they are not studying. So as I mentioned about data trend and everything, so here data was not supporting us, because as per trend it was supposed to be for engineering students this quarter. Then we realized even CS students, which is professional for us, CA, CS students. But again, it was kept postponing every month and month, and then it got postponed to November, December. But here we realized, like, after talking to students and faculties, students are still looking for that. So here, when we started testing, bringing in faculty and tutorials, and started the classes, when the highest number turnaround was these CACS students. And we thought of, like, we'll not be doing any junior college for now, because kids are overwhelmed. Again, it was a new learning for us. Like, but 11th graders were not interested, but because of board, 12th graders were looking for support.
Okay.
So those kind of thing mismatch. Data didn't support new learning, and only after talking to consumer, and as Anuradha said, like, she started things and people started coming in. That's how we realized, after starting few things, and we started putting more and more resources supply. So we kept working on supply side, because we didn't know what is going to click as per the data and what's not going to click. So we started throwing small pallets on this thing before you going full guns on there. Any kind of these things in this one vertical I'm talking about.
Pilots meaning pilots on the front end.
Yeah. So as we discussed about the small supply side. So we was to work on a supply side. We didn't build on technology much. We didn't build on much of the advertisement side and all that. And it was pure, some social media, telecalling, and all those things, and just making people aware of availability of these things, which is something relevant to these guys. And unlike K-12, in higher education, decision makers are themselves. The kids themselves decide about it. It's not like you can't market them, emotional marketing kind of thing for them. So here we have to be very particular. We're telling kids, and some mechanical, for example, engineering guys would say, "Sir, abhi itni jaldi kaun padhega?" types. And then if there's a teacher, he wants to teach, he or she wants to teach because he's sitting free at home, but there are no takers in the market.
So how did your communication change then because of COVID?
So because of COVID, depends on the stream. We had to keep changing.
Give us an example. Yeah.
So for on if we can see the slide, so we had like 4 different kind of communication to respective target audience. One was on consumer side, so collaboration. So we partnered with Intel, where we thought of like on logistics side, so it will be reaching out, and branding and all those things will be happening.
Yeah.
They launched a campaign PC Pathshala, so it will their own machine will take care
That's
of.
the next slide, Bansi. Yeah.
So this is the initiative we took with Intel, where they shortlisted only 3 tech company besides their OEMs, and Khan Academy, Copy Kitab, and then Udemy. So Copy Kitab one of the partner, and since they were going all, they were looking to scale up their PC thing for kids sitting at home. So we thought like it will be taking care of itself by when we just take care of our backend supply side
So this is taking advantage of the fact that suddenly laptops were hot again.
Yes.
And mobile was less hot. Yeah.
So after saying so many no's, this is one thing we did.
Yeah.
For consumer side, a slide before Mansi. So we did this thing is missing. So cracking is something they keep focusing on student. So this is something Ghar Baite Padho we launched for students. So because everybody is at home. So the message going to consumer and all our handles and every communication was going that Ghar Baite Padho. So whoever is saying, so this is something we were communicating from website to everywhere, all channels, like Ghar Baite Padho, this is for consumer. So this is for consumer.
Did you test different communications like A/B test? Because you guys have a lot of traffic. You have I don't know, 6 million registered users. Is that right?
Yeah.
So did you test A/B test any communications?
No, we couldn't, unfortunately, Nish, because again, there was a bandwidth issue at our end, though we wanted to.
Okay.
So we thought like first we build on supply side. So there should be enormous supply. And then let's have kids choosing what they're looking for, and then we keep building around that. So
I would suggest, I can understand the bandwidth issue. My suggestion is, having kind of done this many times, is that actually setting up A/B tests once you get going is not that complicated, and in the end it actually saves you time. That's my feeling. I don't know if others have views on this, but especially, I mean, Sumit is very lucky. He has a huge amount of traffic, so that means that on an A/B test you can get results very quickly. You don't need to
I totally agree.
for that sample size. So great. Let's do this. I think let the audience contribute. So let's take a poll right now. Mansi, if we can put up our first poll. I can't remember. I think the first question was around consumer behavior. And the second is kind of, in your business, what is your number one priority? So while people are answering this, and panelists, feel free to answer if you like as well. But let's move on to this question of kind of, what I was just mentioning, experimentation. I don't know, again, I know like Kuntal, you do this quite a lot, or even though you don't have a lot of traffic, right? Similarly, Multibhashi, I imagine, has a bit more traffic, but how much did you guys leverage experimentation to figure out what you wanted to do? I think Anuradha already talked about this a little bit. How about you, Kuntal?
We did, so I think we're big believers in figuring out, does she want this, before we go ahead and create all the supply on our end. So in fact, I was thinking about how we actually got to where we are today. So we're actually we're on track to be back to being back at our pre-COVID levels. But after like a shutdown, and just to kind of illustrate the difference, actually, if you can show slide 18 and 19.
Okay, while she puts that up, keep going.
Yeah. So if if you think about it, in March, we were like hardcore into workwear, business formals, and that's also a time when there's a lot of interview prep and all that happening. There's also Women's Day, so there's gender equality. So if you look at slide 18 and 19, there's a lot of pictures, and this is the imagery that you would have seen, right? Come to slide 20.
I swear it was Friday like 5 minutes ago, because it's true. Everyone feels like you're in a time warp, right? Yeah.
This is how we are looking today, right? If you look at slide 20 and 21. There is nothing that looks like workwear at all. It's active, and it's loungewear and sleepwear. But we didn't actually come to this path naturally in that sense. we'd spoken to our users. Yeah, I'll keep this because this is what I kind of call our pajama party moment. We'd spoken to our users, and initially a lot of our users were saying, "I'm not buying. I'm not in the mood to buy." But we also realized it didn't mean that she couldn't buy. It's just that she didn't want to buy what we have, which is work clothes. So we pretty much started like quickly, shifting things around, did what everybody else in the industry did, where we talked about work from home, comfort clothes, and we also started looking at some segments for future in terms of maternity, because we kind of thought that made a lot of sense. But we realized we needed to do something else. So I'll kind of tell you how this was literally through discussions, through brainstorming, where the team said we need to have a sale because everybody is having a sale and we cannot go against the market. So we said okay, but we just don't want to have a sale because we're not doing anything different. So how do we stand out in the whole noise of the apparel industry, which is trying to get rid of its stock, having sale? So what we did was we kind of came up with this whole thing that we called TGIF, where we did a TGIF event. It would be time-based scarcity. We would say that these products are here for you to look at. We would create ensembles, looks, etc. And just tell her that this is available only for 24 hours. I think as an example of like complete experimentation, we didn't even create landing pages. We used MailChimp to create landing pages for our first 2 TGIs, and they were really ugly. I was actually almost about to send it out here. But then I was like, I actually am embarrassed. So I didn't put it.
True mark of an MVP is when you're embarrassed.
I was just really embarrassing. Those were so terrible, and our ops team cried because internally everything became very scrambled.
But it's interesting what you're saying which is that you created when demand was a little slack, what you said was, how do we create a concentration of demand?
Yeah, it's
right. And so great way to do it is to do an event, right?
Yeah, it's almost like we had to wake up the slumber, I kind of, because a lot of our customers who started coming in for the first TGIF and for the second TGIF,
yeah,
said that this is the first purchase I'm making after ages.
Yeah.
I hadn't made any purchases at all, right? And they just said I felt like I had to do this, otherwise I was missing out. So we created that event, that excitement, and I had we had customers pinging us saying, "Oh, this is so much fun." So I think customers also needed some level of entertainment.
Yeah.
And they kind of just needed to feel that there's something going on. I can't describe it, and maybe you could do a better job than me. But I think they just wanted something to break the monotony of the week that was happening.
Yeah, actually, Mansi, let's put up slide 30 because I think it relates to kind of what Kuntal was talking about in terms of short time frame, exclusivity, get it now, all of that.
If I can talk like a consumer for Kuntal, I would like to put my finger on that, what you were talking about. It's like talking about shopping therapy, when we women sometimes get really depressed, we need some amount of shopping therapy, even if it's just a new pair of pajamas.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, again, from the same Google report, and, not all of this is new. I think people who are marketers, people who have worked on conversion and conversion optimization know a lot of this. But still, it's good to kind of sometimes remind ourselves because we also forget, right? I certainly forget, and I sometimes read stuff that supposedly I already know, but it's a good reminder, right? So they talked about the 6 big factors that drive people that influence purchase, right? And I think one of the things you were talking about, Kuntal, was scarcity bias.
Yes.
Right? Power of now also is there in the sense that get it in this time frame, otherwise you won't get it.
Yeah.
Right? Authority, of course, matters a lot. That's where brand comes in, or partners that have authority come in, right? Free, we don't need to explain free in India. Social proof, of course, means that, look, if other people are doing it, I'm also going to do it. And then category heuristics is, depending on your category, like if you're in health foods, then there's some shortcuts, right? So organic is good, right? I don't know, for you, Kuntal, like what are some of those heuristics where you just say like, okay, that is a shortcut for the customer to say, this is fine for me. Like probably something like 100% cotton or something, those
So,
kinds of things.
yeah, so I'll take you to the the pajama party slide, as I call it. So if you
Yeah.
come, because those were the heuristics. I think it's
Mm.
slide 22. Yeah. So we have a kind of like every single TGF, and along the way we were figuring out what are the various supply categories we get into. So we were doing things, and then we started wondering about nighties, and we heard like a lot of women were buying nighties. We were like, okay,
Do they still call them 90s? I
yeah,
thought that
yeah,
was like my mother's generation or something.
they
Okay.
do. So I had the same reaction. I was like, 90s? I mean, that really, it just, but we heard a lot of women were buying 90s and nightwear. So we were kind of still wondering, okay, where do we get these from? And then, serendipity, I spoke to somebody in the industry, and they had premium export wear sitting with them. And they couldn't do anything about it. So he said, I have some 500, 600 pieces. And I was like, wow. So he said, but I don't know if that would make sense to you. I said, wait, hold on. So I asked him for the images. I went back to the team, and we were like, okay, can we do a TGIF event of this one? It was a complete knockout. We have not had anything like this before. We sold 300 pieces in one day.
Wow.
But I think there were a couple of things that actually the heuristics, as you talked about. One, just that there was this was fashion photography. We found these images on the net. The guy who gave it to us did not have it because he's the manufacturer. So we actually knew which brand it was for. We went, we found it, we used it on our posts.
So great photography is obviously a important heuristic in fashion.
A big
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
right? This is very, very aspirational.
Yeah.
We talked about premium. We talked about Italian cotton. And we also got the word out through our networks. This was pure organic traffic that came in because we said that this is limited in stock. It is, it is kind of like somebody whose stuff is locked over here due to the lockdown, and hence it's here.
Yeah.
And we also leaked the brand in that sense a little bit, so people understood that this was happening.
So for Sunita and Radha, like what are examples of heuristics in your businesses where people say, so actually Sunita already said it. He said, crack the exam. Like that's a heuristic, right? That's like a shortcut to saying, yes, this is the thing that will help me crack the exam.
In our
This
case,
is one more thing. Sorry, Anuradha. One more thing I would add. Crack is one thing, and for CA vertical, I'll give you another example. CA and CS exam, professional exams, they number of attempts is very close to their heart. So we also launched like a crack in first attempt. The number of attempts is very close to their heart.
So that's
कितने attempt pass हुआ. So all
that's
that
very
stuff.
interesting. Yeah. So I think in any category, I think like getting at those things, these are things you have to test out. Obviously, you don't necessarily, you have some hypotheses, you test it out, you see what actually performs, and you go with that. What about for you, Anuradha?
So I think for us, one heuristic that we've seen working is align it to the curriculum for the certification exam. So when somebody learns French and you tell them learn French, like learn spoken French, doesn't work that well. But when you tell them that this course will enable you to clear DELF A1 of French,
yeah,
and our curriculum is actually aligned to that, it works for them. But more than heuristic, social proof, like I was talking about, Nish, is very relevant for us because, like I said, in my own 5-year-old, my son is just 5-year-old, okay? And his kindergarten group of WhatsApp, one mother asked, okay, where can my kid learn German? That was my first kid's special language learning course. And I said, okay, I'm doing a batch for German for kids. Would you like to get in? All the mothers came in. So that's the social proof. Aditya Bichara also got stuck. He's also learning German with us.
That's like some combination of social proof and FOMO.
FOMO.
Okay. So Mansi, let's put up the poll results. And meanwhile, I'll just ask the audience to type in questions for the panelists. Okay, so this is interesting. Like almost everyone believes that consumer behavior will change in some way permanently. I sometimes like to use the analogy of in India, the attack on Parliament and 9/11, and how in many ways our lives have permanently changed when such large kind of significant national or global events happen, right? Whatever metal detectors and what you can carry on airplanes, what you can't carry, etc., and then it just kind of becomes a part of life. So I think most people here are aligned with. Does anyone on the panel disagree with that, or?
I totally agree. Second example is, after demonetization, digital payment thing happened to everyone. Everybody got comfortable buying online, paying on digitally.
Yeah.
So it's surely going to change behavior of consumer.
Cool.
As a mother, Nish, I can tell you that even post-COVID, I'll be wary of sending out my kids unnecessarily to all those physical classes I used to send them to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's one
Yeah.
takeaway for me, big takeaway. I mean, they'll have to go to school if they'll have to go to school, but at least those drawing classes and those, right? I would surely avoid as much as possible for a long time.
Yeah. So there's that protection aspect to it. I think there's a positive aspect to it also, which is, I've been advising my kids' school, Bombay International. I've been advising them on how to drive better engagement in their classes, right? And I was also telling them, I said, like, look ahead to see what elements of online you want to retain, because it's not as if the classroom is a technology that's been perfected or can't be improved, right? So it's not true that everything has to go back to the way it was. You'll find that there's certain things about online. Of course, you don't want as much screen time and so on, but certain things you'll want to retain, right? So that's a more positive way of looking at it also.
I think
Great.
I think if there is a tremendous amount of convenience and benefit that is coming, that is not just related to this particular time period.
Yeah.
I think that behavior shift will happen. So
Sure.
we're seeing it in our case because we're onboarding now a lot of offline users, and they don't want to shop online. So they are liking the service, and they don't actually now see why they'll ever go offline again.
Sure.
So as Kuntal was mentioning about, like, maids are not there, so husband would be working a lot and women would be shopping around online from Kuntal's portal, and husband would be working households. So that's another
I think
behavior.
I think most women will disagree on that one. That in terms of reality, it's a nice.
A meme can be made out of it, Nish. Like what I thought would happen and what is actually happening.
Yeah.
Now we know what you guys do, so yeah, we totally share with you guys.
You empathize now.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So okay. So and then number one priority. It's great to see that most people are focusing on innovation and new revenue and continuing growth. Right. Costs. I think so. I think everyone's, I'm sure, focused on costs, but in terms of number one priorities, people are looking in different directions, and I think we've heard that in this panel also. Let's take questions from the audience. Just type in your questions on chat, please, and then we'll take those up. And in parallel, perhaps. Okay, no, I don't think we'll have time for the second poll. So, okay, there's one question which says, "Wonder if there's a gender bias about research versus using anecdotal evidence." I guess that they're trying to say that men like research and women like anecdotal evidence. What do people have a view there? Oh, it's not really a question, just an observation. Okay, anyway, I'll ask for your views. Okay.
For consumer point of view, it happens in terms of, girls tend to buy all their education stuff much earlier than boys. There's a gender base, I can tell.
Oh, that's interesting. And I think that it is a stereotype, but it goes with the stereotype that says that girls tend to kind of plan better and be more organized, right?
I would agree to this, Nish. In fact, in my opinion also, from whatever leads we've seen, girls are, and I would put it in a different way. I would say girls are more trusting when they're buying something online compared to guys. I mean, they will go to 10 other websites, do their research and come back. Girls will be more impulsive in buying and trusting you when you're telling them that we have this, we have that. This
in that sense, they are listening to mothers and boys are not listening to them.
This sounds like my wife telling me that this sounds like my wife telling me, like, you don't have to have all the data, just make a decision,
Exactly.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Cool. Looking for more questions from the audience. How has your, okay, very specific question. How has your CAC been affected during COVID? And I think, I'm sure there'll be different answers for different people. Who wants to go?
So for us, please. Namrata, please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
We've been positively impacted. We've seen our CAC coming down post-COVID. We've seen people opening up to the idea of buying online, Nish. Earlier, they were wary of, why do I join you? Why don't I go to a proper coaching center? We stopped getting this response altogether. So yeah.
Very interesting. So in a way, a lot of that has gone down. I mean, of course, on your paid side, but also because organic has increased a lot, I would imagine.
Correct.
Right?
People are searching for ways to upskill themselves in this downtime. So
And
that
have you focused on optimizing SEO content, etc., or how?
we are constantly, we are SEO freaks. Like we have
Mm,
40,000 pages on our website and counting.
wow.
From like 2 years ago, since we started, we've been SEO freaks. So we constantly keep doing that, and not just
Okay.
on-site, off-site
Okay.
SEO also we focus heavily on,
Okay.
especially Quora and YouTube.
Okay. Okay. So there are a few more questions in very little time. So unless someone has something very different to add on CAC, can we move on? Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So one question is, one of the panelists mentioned telemarketing. Was it an actual human being calling, or was it automated? And if someone has done both, can you share learnings?
So for us, automated is not that great because every student behaves differently. So far, it's been more effective for us in a more human way. We have been doing it for tutorials and all that.
I just have to get back into shape, and we'll do it. I'll also play.
Yeah. So
No.
in customer care you can put automation, but telemarketing you cannot automate much. Depends on target audience you do have.
Okay.
So for us it's been more personal.
Okay. Anyone has done automated sort of telecalling or any of that? No.
Ours was again human-led telecalling.
Yeah.
No experience with automated phone calls. I normally just cut my calls if I get a machine speaking to me. So I'm not sure how effective that would be. I've been always wary about these automated calls myself.
But I also think, we had people calling, but not only did we have people calling, we also had, people like our managers calling. Because all said and done, we're dealing with a very different time.
Yeah.
So I don't think there is anything that, I think if you do automation, I'm not sure like how the IVR will operate. You have to at least have some sense of what's going to happen before the IVR even comes into play.
I would agree. Like I would say, even if you end up telecalling or automated calling, eventually you have to start with human. You have to understand how the reactions, how the dynamics are going to work, what questions people are comfortable answering, not answering, what follow-up questions they might have before they answer the question, etc.
It's a very different time frame.
Yeah.
Especially when you are doing new categories and new products, it's very you get great insights after talking to customers. Sure. Me and Amit, both the co-founders, speak to a couple of customers every day, so it's totally different actually.
Great.
And customer care you can put on automation, not sales, I would say.
Okay. So I'm gonna bring this to a close because I don't think it's fair to run over time. But two things I'll ask. One is, Mansi, if you can just post the feedback link right here in the chat for everyone, then I would really appreciate it if, it's literally 30 seconds of your time. If you could just give us feedback on the session. And secondly, I'll ask, I think actually I have everyone's LinkedIn. I promised that I would give out LinkedIn for professional contacts or dates or whatever. So let me do that, right? Okay, so what I'll ask each of you meanwhile is just give one parting thought, to kind of entrepreneurs who are here in terms of like, what is your single most important lesson that you would kind of say, this is what I sort of feel I'm taking away from this crisis that you think can help them?
I'll start, and I think I actually was inspired on this thought by somebody else, and it made a lot of sense to me. And it said, the guy said that the purpose of a DTC brand is to serve the community. So if you know who your community is and who you're like talking about or who you're talking to, you actually can figure out what you do to serve them at different points in time. And you just are constantly then thinking about it, and it doesn't seem like an unnatural fit introducing a new product or introducing a new service, because you're just thinking, I'm doing what is best for her.
Okay, Great. Sumit?
I was
Okay, Anuradha, go
Yes,
ahead.
Apu.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was about to say the same thing, Nish, that, whichever sector you're working in, there has to be a positive side of this crisis on your business. You just need to focus on that, and you'll be able to focus on that only if you focus on your end customer and think, what is that one need that has opened up for my customer because of this crisis? And how can I use that opening the way we did? So I could have, brooded about the fact that, okay, my audience is blue collar professionals, their salary is going down, they're not going to buy anything from me now. But instead of thinking about just English, I thought about myself as a language learning platform, and who all need this language learning at this time. And that opening helped us basically carry forward from there. So there would be a ray of light for sure for everybody, whichever segment they are in.
Great. Sumit?
Yeah, I would add on same lines what Anuradha and Kuntal said. Though it's testing time and we were fortunately COVID positive, but still, you see a lot of dark clouds on businesses and everybody getting affected. So one is when testing time comes, there still opportunities are there. You keep looking for opportunities, and there should be some opportunity, and people build companies in during this kind of time. So that keep us going as an entrepreneur. And two is real business and real customer you get to know in these times. Real business, how solid your business and your unit economics are solid or not. And you get to know your customer better than ever, because now they have more time and they are free to interact rather than cutting off your call in the between in mid, and you get to know deeper insights. So I think this is the other 2-3 learnings which has been pretty positive for us as a company, and it kept us going actually.
Great. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you, Mansi, so much. And I hope the audience got something out of it. Once again, a reminder that the feedback has been sent on this chat from SAE Mansi. It's a Google form, so please give us quick feedback. And I think we'll be back next month with another session from SAE. And have a good weekend, everyone.
Thanks,
you.
Manji. Thanks, Nish. Thanks,
everyone.
SCA,
Thanks.
for having us.
Bye-bye.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Paula.
Paula.